And welcome to those people arriving. We're just going to wait a few more minutes. It's just 2 o'clock now, so we'll give some people time to get in and we'll start in just a couple of minutes. Hello again to those people who are arriving. We're just going to wait a few more minutes to let people get settled and get logged in, and then we'll kick off our webinar. So just bear with us for a few minutes, please. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll get started. Welcome to the EurOcean webinar series, where ocean literacy meets EU business. This is the first webinar of the series, and it's dedicated to corporate, environmental, and social responsibility. We might refer to this as CESR practices as we go on. My name is Ruth Higgins, and I'll be the moderator today, together with support from my colleague, Sarah Granchino. And this event is aimed at exploring the role of ocean literacy in CESR within the EU business sector. And it's organised by EurOcean in support of the EU4Ocean platform. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the EU4Ocean platform, please refer to the chat from the webinar, and you can find there links for information about the platform and how you can join. Okay, so today we have an excellent opportunity to dive into this critical intersection with two distinguished speakers. And this is an ideal occasion for businesses, startups, environmental professionals, and anyone who's passionate about the ocean and sustainability to unite and drive some positive change. So first, allow me to introduce our speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Luca Barani. He's an environmental economist and ocean advocate. And Luca is a co-founder of Sea the Change and is passionate about impact communication. Our second speaker is Mr. Bram Pauwels, who advises the EBN, the European Business and Innovation Centre Network, senior management on strategic direction and stakeholder positioning in the innovation sector. Bram has over 13 years of international experience in strategy, marketing, and management, with a strong background in startup support, innovation, ecosystems, and impact entrepreneurship policy development. So without further ado, let's get started. Luca Barani, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Ruth. I will share my screen. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you very much, especially to Ruth and Sarah for the invitation. It's really a great pleasure for me to be here today. So my name is Luca Barani, and I am one of the co-founder of Sea the Change, an Italian innovative startup with a social vocation that works to connect company sustainability strategy with the protection of marine ecosystem and oceans. Our team is composed by 3 environmental economists, the 3 co-founders, and several experts that have a strong background in scientific and in science and communication. So why did we decide to focus on this topic? Well, first, we have on one side companies, so the private sector, that actually needs to find the most efficient way to integrate the blue economy in their sustainability strategy. These needs are driven by external factors. In particular, we have new legislation, especially from European Union, for example, ESG investment criteria, brand reputation, and the change in customer preferences, and of course, the need to acquire and keep new talents. On the other side, we have the ocean, that are unfortunately deeply threatened by the worst effect of climate change that lead, for example, to biodiversity loss, to an increase in water pollution, and in the rate of acidification of water. Just to give you an example, just to give you one data to make you understand why we are working on this topic, each year it was calculated that there is a gap of around $149 billion to provide marine ecosystem the necessary funds to conserve and protect this ecosystem and to fight, of course, the worst effect of climate change. So these are some of the goals we reached in these first years with our startup. We are part of the Blue Invest platform, at the European level, and we are recognized by the European Medban Consortium, which is an accelerator for small and medium enterprises at European level. Also, we have been selected and we participated to several acceleration programs with the MIT of Boston, with Climate Kick, and the last one we did was Social Tide with Google.org and INCO. But now let's try to dive a little bit deeper into today's topic, which is, of course, corporate social responsibility. So first, it's really important for me to define it, to define what we are talking about. And when we speak about corporate social responsibility, we are speaking about a management concept according to which companies need to integrate in their business operation social and environmental concern. Of course, when we speak about business operation, we also include all the relationship with company stakeholders. It's really important to define since the beginning that when we speak about corporate social responsibility policy, we are not speaking about philanthropy or donation to NGO or foundation that, of course, are very positive action, but are pretty different concept. Indeed, when we speak about corporate social responsibility, we are referring to the fact that companies should see their social and environmental concern at the same level as other strategical assets. So, for example, a company should put on the same level CSR policy with other assets, such as, I don't know, financial planning or the need to acquire new employees or talents. Just to give you a little bit more an idea of the context in which we are today, I selected some data. So the first one is telling us that basically all the managers from big corporates around the world believe that CSR strategies can create a positive image for a company and boost consumer trust. On the other hand, consumers are way more likely to trust a company that supports social or environmental issues. And most of the employees really want to work for a company that has a strong CSR program. So let's not forget that today we are in a very globalized and competitive market. And I think it's really important and relevant for companies to differentiate themselves, and see a good CSR strategy could be the right tool to do it. So, of course, CSR is switching, and it's not, switching from a nice to have strategy to an absolute necessity for companies. And what we are seeing already, and we will see more and more in the next year, are new trends that, for example, will force somehow company to engage with local communities and to build a very strong and unified corporate culture. And also, company cannot just focus on the reduction of their negative impacts, but they must plan to generate positive one. And it's really important to understand the role that new technologies such as AI can have in CSR strategy in the present and in the future. Of course, CSR strategies must integrate day after day more into business strategy, and it's very important that we integrate them following the new regulation and directives. Speaking of directive, this will not be, I don't have enough time to explain you the new CSR directive, the Corporate Social Responsibility Directive from the European Union that was approved last year. But it's very important for you to know that this, of course, will be the framework that will regulate all the sustainability topic in Europe and for companies that want to work with European companies as well. And thanks to this framework, it will be, thank God, I want to say, always harder for companies to greenwash. And of course, as I was already saying before, it will be very important for company to provide positive impact. And we will start to, the sustainability CSR strategy for a single company will become very relevant for the whole value chain. So, for example, even suppliers, small suppliers of big corporates will be always more included. Last but not least, private investment will evaluate always more, not only the economical performances of a company, but also following the ESG criteria, their environmental, social, and governance performances. So far we have been speaking about CSR, and now we need to understand how we can connect CSR with the ocean. For all of you that are interested in the topic, I really suggest to have a look online to this One Ocean Foundation 2023 report. It's very easy to find and completely available. And thanks to this research, we can start to understand the first trends that are connecting CSR and the ocean. As you can see, unfortunately, the Sustainable Development Goal number 14, Life Below Water, is among the one that is the least funded, especially by the private sector. Indeed, these data are looking at are global. However, even though still this SDG is receiving very low funds, we can see a positive trend in the last year, and we expect in the next one to increase. It's also very interesting to understand which are the companies that are actually already investing in the Life Below Water SDG. And of course, as expected, the one that are already more sensitive on the topic are the so-called ocean economy companies. So those companies that already work directly with marine ecosystem, followed by the fashion industry and the energy one. It's quite interesting to me, at least, that tourism as a sector, which is negatively highly impacting on marine ecosystem, it's just in the middle, let's say, of this ranking. So why it's important to connect, again, CSR with the ocean? Well, first, because it's very efficient, in the sense that for each €1 that we invest in projects that support the conservation of ocean, we can generate up to €10 of benefit for the local community. Also, if we consider, for example, CO2 absorption of CO2 emission, we can see that marine ecosystems are way more efficient than land-based ecosystem in absorbing CO2 emission. Last but not least, unfortunately, the great majority of additional heat that our society is generating each year with CO2 emission is trapped and absorbed by ocean ecosystem. So it's really important and fundamental, I would say, that we as a society contribute to protect and support this ecosystem so they can mitigate and adapt to the worst effect of climate change. So, what is doing Sea the Change? Of course, Sea the Change is working to connect, as I was saying, CSR strategy with ocean protection. And to do so, we have a four-step methodology that allow us first to make an assessment and understand which can be the most relevant project for a company to be combined with their sustainability strategy, which are the stakeholder that we should involve in the project, and which is the most relevant geographical area. Second, we take care of the implementation of the project, making sure that all the goals are reached. And of course, then we put a lot of focus on the communication and engagement of the stakeholder we selected. And last but not least, we provide to companies all the tools and materials they need to report the positive impact we generate. And today, we are working in four main areas, which are pollution. Indeed, we work to reduce marine litter pollution, in particular plastic. We work also to support marine biodiversity, as I was saying before, to mitigate climate change. And we put a lot of effort to, since the planning of our strategy, of our work, to engage as much as we can the stakeholders. Before finishing my presentation, I want to bring to you a case study from work we did last year with one of our clients, Aliaxis. And together with this company, this company decided to invest in our project, which is called Fishing for Litter. In this case, what we are doing is, with the help of local fishermen, we are financing day in which local fishermen are not fishing fishes, but just marine litter, because we believe that it's crucial to pay fishermen in order to thank for a benefit that they generate to the whole community. So as you can see, these are some of the numbers we managed to generate last year with this project. And imagine that just in one summer, we managed to collect almost 3 tennis courts equivalent from the Adriatic Sea, which is quite, let's say, a small sea compared to, for example, bigger one. And of course, as you can see at the end of the slide, we are using several different types of indicators, because it's really important when we report the positive impact to be able to trace all the impact we generated. Then we were able, as I was saying before, to put a lot of effort on the engagement of stakeholders. So for the social engagement, we create a customized video in order to explain to the customer of the company what we were doing. And we even managed to actually bring 2 managers from the company inside the project and make them actually understand what we were doing and why it's important to invest in such type of project. So thank you very much for your attention. Please feel free to reach me out through email or to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Luca. That was a very insightful presentation, and just goes to show how much you can achieve when you're focused on ocean stewardship and not just, but environmental stewardship. So this is very interesting. Thank you very much. So next up, our next speaker is Bram Pauwels. I hand over to you, Bram.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Sarah, as well, for the invitation. And Luca, thank you for the presentation to show a very interesting solution here. And let me get my presentation started. And then we continue. All is well, you should see my screen now. Bram Pauwels indeed, as Sarah announced indeed briefly as well, working at EBN, the European Business Innovation Center Network, as a Chief Strategy Officer. I will tell you a bit today very briefly about EBN is doing. I will tell you, unfortunately, as we always think that innovative companies that our members at EBN are serving are ahead of the curve, are unfortunately quite behind the curve when it comes to CSR. I will also show you that due to regulation at the EU policy, EU level, there is no despair. We actually see a trend moving towards greater ESG reporting. I think that brings the case for more solutions such as Sea the Change, with startup companies getting more insights in their ESG performance. Of course, we'll also see where they're lacking in their performance, and we need to stimulate them to improve their further environmental, social, and governance performance. Briefly about EBN, we're a network founded by the European Commission roughly 40 years ago. We facilitated around 170 plus business and entrepreneurship support organizations. So we call them EU BIC, European Business Innovation Center Network. The wide variety. We like to say that they focus around 4 specific mission commitments, which is first and foremost, that's why we were founded as well. That said, we are now independently operating from the commission that we were founded back then to drive sustainable regional economic development. This means that our members are very deeply embedded in their region and help to build the ecosystems that support innovation and entrepreneurship. They do that by delivering quality business support and innovation support in the broader sense. You'll see, for example, sector and industry specific accelerator and incubator programs, also for the blue economy, but also for green techs. We see them as well providing access to finance for those kind of companies and help them scale, enter new markets or further scale their operations through other tools. Brief snapshot, as said, 170 members. They are your typical incubators, accelerators, science and technology park, but also university-linked incubators and R&D centers, and servicing 36,000 companies, so mostly startups and smallest part of that are scale-ups. They're across the whole industrial sectors, spread out, if you can say so. So you find them in the blue economy, you find them in space industry, you find them in health, energy and renewables, etc. I think what makes the network unique are that we're quite able to provide funding for our client companies and members client companies, roughly 1 billion a year is capital attracted throughout Europe, and due to the, I would say, the strong embedment in the regional innovation ecosystem of our members, the companies that are supported by EUBIC survive above average. So of course it will come later as well. We'll see that startups have other needs than CSR, unfortunately. They are struggling for survival. I think Luca can probably have something to say about that too. It's not easy to start your own company, and the first 3 years, 5 years are critical. More than 50% don't survive after 5 years. So CSR is not yet on the radar yet. It's coming more and more, and we'll come to that later. This is a quick snapshot of where we operate. As you can see, a lot of them are around coastal areas as well. We had the pleasure of having EurOcean at our annual Congress last June in Atlampol, one of our members in Nantes, which of course is closely related to the Saint-Nazaire shipping area, also the blue economy and the marine scientists there. So they formed a local ecosystem around the blue economy. So we have roughly between 10 and 15 of those members that are really strongly focusing on the blue economy industry. As said, what we do realize and what we see in the innovation landscape is that we need to accelerate the performance of not only European regions, but also stimulate the supply of innovative solutions. So we focus on more and more systemic innovation. Our members form the spider in the web, if I may say so, of many innovation ecosystems in Europe, and they help to constructively build them out. For that, we have a specific EU-big innovation ecosystem booster framework. We'll share you a QR code where you can look at it if it's interesting for you. These are the tools. It's a playbook that has all the tools that our members use to stimulate their regional innovation ecosystems. As you know, it's a solution is not only born in a university, it's not only born in a research center, it needs to go to the market, it needs finance, it needs clients, it needs a whole village to grow and to become mainstream in that sense and to survive. This is what our members focus on. So far about EBN, I have the honor, or at least I took it upon me, perhaps not so smart, to dive into the regulations that are actually stimulating CSR at the European level. I would like to see how we drive impact together, and that for that I made a division between impact by law and impact by operations. I think you can also say impact by regulations from a European level, or you can see how the market is dominating and how the market is driving more sustainable solutions. So let's first focus on this web of regulations and actions and policies and directives of the European Union, a European Commission, as mentioned as well. CSRD is one of the big directives, laws that are pushing for more sustainable solutions and helping hopefully to get sustainable development goals back on track, with only 50% at the moment on track. I think it's very clear that we're in a poly crisis, and the urgency to act against climate change and rising inequalities has never been more acute. So the Commission has stepped up their action with the EU Green Deal. Mostly you are familiar with the action, or at one point have heard of it. It is the attempt by the Commission to drive transformative change at an European level. So we will see that not only through regulation influencing demand, for example, for green tech or blue economy solutions, but also how they influence supply and demand driven actions. I deliberately left this as a very chaotic overview of a lot of actions and a lengthy list to show you that where within the different regulations and action plans, because there are sub-action plans in the sub-regulations, they're actually a comprehensive approach by the EU. And we'll see that it will also stimulate, in the end, companies that are from our network relevant to startups that are pushed to become more green. And it's not always easy to be green, as we know. I will skip the part how much money is involved, but roughly €1 trillion in sustainable investments seek to be raised over the next decade. And I think without looking at the different programs, how much money is in there, it's a lot. The big takeaway I think you could remember from this is absorption capacity is one of the biggest issues that we see in Europe. We see it in the regions, and we see it as well among companies. So there is a lot of money and there's a lot of regulation to push for the green transition. The capacity at the company and business level versus and regional levels and government levels is perhaps lagging behind. Let's make it a bit more concrete. So how does this law translate to what companies that might want to be involved or seek to get involved into CSR practices, and ultimately as well try to improve their ESG performance? How the EU regulation influences that? Taking a step back, where we see that not only government, of course, and law trying to stimulate the green transformations, also businesses to become more competitive, innovative, sustainable, and inclusive. I took the liberty of having a rough distinction between 3 different categories, and I think we talk a lot about the right category here, and it makes sense as well because it's mostly the scale-ups and the larger mid-caps and the corporates that are affected directly by CSRD, and it's rightfully so as well, because perhaps they're not directly CSR oriented, so they needed to be stimulated by regulation. The middle category, where you look at the startup pillar, you will see that they're not per se CSR oriented. The green tech startups, and that's more, I think, a metaphysical question or a more philosophical question. If a green tech startup should be taken into account that by operations, they're already working on CSR performance. So if you're working on a biofuel, for example, do you still need to measure your whole company-wide performance? I'll leave that question here for the audience, or perhaps maybe related to coming back. I won't focus on it. But in any case, the startups are exempt of the CSRD regulation. They're not applicable in terms of needing to report their CSR performance. I think 250 employees is the threshold. Everything below that is exempt for reporting requirements by the CSRD regulation. Just very briefly, we have, of course, the left side of the column as well, which are the impact startups, where impact equals profit. Most of them are exempt of CSRD. So which ones are not, of course, are the larger ones. So talk about Warby Parker, Patagonia, Tom Shoes, Fairphone, etc. The Tony Chocolonely. The larger companies, of course, they need to report CSR performance. They do it already from their philosophy or by nature of their being as a company. EBN and our members, the EU BICs, they focus mostly on the middle column. So the startups, and those are, as you see, for EBN only 36,000 startups a year. Talk about hundreds of thousands of companies throughout Europe, all not affected by CSRD regulation. So they do not invest in CSR at this point. That sounds gloomy. I think that there is some sympathy why. I think resource allocation is one of the biggest points. Implementing ESG reporting and sustainability measures can be resource intensive, may be challenging as well for startups with limited capital and manpower. And it might not be directly the first thing to tackle, mission critical thing to tackle. Yet, of course, any company, startups as well, in whatever early stage or mid stage they need to be compliant to the regulation. That's either on a national or European level. CSRD is not applicable. There are other applications that will push startups in a deeper commitment to ESG reporting. And I think for that we have to take a bit of a sidestep towards what we're discussing directly on the CSRD. There's a lot of money necessary for the green transitions, not only for EU society, but also for EU businesses to accelerate the transition to a more competitive, innovative, and sustainable and inclusive economy. Colleagues from Impact Europe, the former Venture Philanthropy Association, gave a quick overview a few months ago. Roughly 4 trillion is needed in euros on the European level only to annually to deliver the SDGs by 2030. On the other end of this overview, we see as well a bit of a light of hope, I must say so, and something that we're very strong at the European level. There is 1 trillion is the potential size of the impact investing market in Europe by 2034. So we're not there yet, but what we see in Europe, and the market share of sustainable investments represents a substantial portion of the overall investment landscape in Europe. We'll see in a moment why green capital or sustainable investment is critical in the story towards more companies adopting ESG. But first, maybe a light of hope, and I think we're doing quite well as Europe. 16% of the total net assets of funds hosted in Europe are sustainable funds, indicating a strong integration of ESG criteria in the investment strategies. Globally, Europe is performing significantly better than the rest of the world. 83% of the world's sustainable funds and net assets are managed in Europe. To put some numbers on that, it equates to roughly 7 trillion of the 12 trillion euros in total sustainable assets managed globally. So that is a very hopeful. We see as well that in the last first half of 2023, sustainable funds in Europe saw inflows of roughly 57 billion just in the first half of the year. But as you can see on the chart here, we need much more money to do the green transition. There's a substantial gap. Darker green is what we have at the moment. You can't see it clearly, the 1.8 to 1.3, and we need in total over 8 trillion on a global scale. So the Commission has put to effectively put into law a stimulants act that looks for greening the investment landscape. So we seek to increase investment in sustainable assets. So a serious push towards more sustainable investment practices, pushing funds to allocate more capital to assets that meet ESG criteria. And this has as well effect. It has contributed to the substantial growth in sustainable funds under management in Europe. So what I want to focus on here, and that's the sidestep that we take from the CSRD, is another acronym. Let me first speak it out loud. It's a Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulations, SFDR, and as well as affiliated with the EU Taxonomy Regulation. I won't focus on the latter, but the first one definitely is affecting the hundreds of thousands of startups in Europe, and as well effectively drawing them in the comprehensive approach to integrating sustainability into Europe's financial and economic systems. What does the SFDR do? It's designed to allow investors to properly assess how sustainability risks are integrated into the investment decision process. It's, I must say, Europe's biggest political objective. It contributes to Europe's biggest political objective, and that is attractive private funding to help Europe make the shift towards a net zero economy. Very briefly, so on the SFDR, it mandates that financial market participants, including investment funds, disclose how sustainability risks are integrated in their investment processes. So we talk here specifically about green finance and those that are labeled as light green and dark green in terms of their sustainability performance. The SFDR requires from investment managers to show how their fund is performing in terms of ESG. For that, of course, they need the data from the companies that they're investing in. That is a sidestep. For now, it's only applicable to the light green and dark green sustainability labeled funds. But it's part of a larger strategy of the European Commission to, in the long term, drive a lot of more private investment that can be labeled as green financing. Impact investing is and has become one of the fastest growing areas of investment in the financial industry. And people really want to put their money where their mouth is, and people want money to work for good. And I think if we keep the pace, impact investing can indeed hit 1 trillion by 2034 and grow its mainstream market share from 1 to 10%. Why does this matter for CSR and CSRD and for startups in that sense? You will see now in that additional transversal column that the SFDR is applicable for all companies trying to raise money or having an investment plan. As said, what matters the most for companies is starting companies is surviving, and they're on a very tough journey. Each innovative tech company is, I think, one of their main cases or two main aims are: one, finding clients and finding customers, and the other one is not to run out of funding before you find those clients. Raising capital is critical to power this journey towards building a solution that is worth paying for by customers and solving a real world solution and that real world issue in that sense. So if you look at the startups all over across the board in all the companies, they need to comply with the regulation as well as the SFDR. Specifically, startups seeking investment must now demonstrate strong ESG practices to attract funding from SFDR compliant investors. And as we've seen, that pool of money is getting larger and larger and hopefully mainstream later on as well in the coming decades. This means that even early stage companies need to be prepared to report on their sustainability efforts, aligning with that increased demand for transparency and accountability in the investment community. So if they want it or not, and if they seek to be innovative and jumping on the fast-moving CSR train or not, I think, fortunately, startups, and that's a message that we push to our network as well, starting to help them, enable them to measure their ESG performance. They need to invest in CSR. I think Luca already showed a few benefits. I can only echo those indeed. And we see that startups that can actually demonstrate a strong commitment to sustainability and transparent reporting will have a competitive advantage in attracting capital. It also not only is interesting for attracting capital, we did several pieces of research that show that improved risk management benefits. It has enhanced brand reputation, of course, as was shown earlier, and better operational efficiencies, among others. We see share price volatility going down. We see market risk going down, all due to committing to CSR. The other side as well is true as well. From the demand side, so from the client side, we see that 77% of customers are motivated to purchase from companies that are committed to making the world a better place. And 54% as well say that they have actually stopped purchasing from a company due to its public position on an issue. So the vote of the client and the customer, and now the vote of the investor as well, becoming more and more critical towards how innovative solutions will see the daylight or not. To conclude, yes, indeed, rather than being seen as a cost or a burden, an investment in CSR should be seen as a long-term play to increase profits. And ESG criteria, startup seeking investments will need to provide detailed information on their environmental, social, and governance practices. The sooner or the later, the better start early. To put mechanisms in place to measure and report on their sustainability performance. Yes, it can be challenging, and it can, especially for those with limited resources, but what have we seen just from this quick overview? There are definitely reasons to start doing it already, critical reasons, mission critical reasons, as well more purpose-driven reasons and solutions out there, such as those of Sea the Change, that are calling for a movement of startups and they're starting companies to invest in ESG. For sure, not even with CSRD, but with the regulations we saw in investing, it's becoming necessary to secure funding from sustainability-focused investors and share that is growing. If we would like to learn more about what EBN is doing, I invite you to download one of our reports. Of course, contact me via Ruth or Sarah. I'm more than happy to further the discussion now in this warm summer afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Bram, for your very engaging presentation. You know, these regional links that EBN works so hard towards, they're very important, I think, for motivating change. And it's clear that EBN is positioned to have a very big impact on the business sector in bringing the topics of sustainability. In a broader sense, it's not simply limited to CESR or even the blue economy, but you know, we need to think, I think, in terms of sustainability as a whole and bringing that to the forefront, particularly for newer companies. And so just before we move on to the participants Q&A, I would like to invite the participants. You may put your questions in the Q&A now and we'll address them later. But I just wanted to say, on behalf of the role of ocean literacy, we call OL for short, the purpose of OL is to equip society as a whole with enough knowledge about the ocean, the water cycle, the environment, to be able to have an informed conversation about how modern day challenges should be or could be addressed. And as such, we as OL, Ocean Literacy Ambassadors, I have a question, it's for Luca and Bram actually. How can we as OL ambassadors entice companies to want to be more sustainable or to care about incorporating sustainability in their corporate culture, even if it's not to the extent of a fully fledged CSR strategy, just beyond simple compliance? How can we facilitate that transition?
Tough question. But okay, from my experience, I don't know if it's totally relevant with your question, but from my experience, I think, I mean, on one side, we have big companies. Today, I would say almost all the big companies, at least in Europe, they know that somehow they need to deal with sustainability. So they may do it because they believe in it, or because it's part of their values, or maybe they will do it just because they have to, but they know. So I think the biggest challenge right now is with small and medium enterprises, but maybe they still don't see that urgency to act. according to new regulation. In my experience, there are two drivers, let's say. The first one is about awareness, in the sense that a lot of time, especially small companies, are really on the shoulder of few people that may be a little bit, I don't know, over 50, let's say, and so maybe they are not that informed about the reason why now sustainability is becoming so relevant also in the economic sector. And most of the time, people, when they don't know something, they may feel a little bit judged and they may respond like negatively. So I think it's really important to create like a safe environment in which everybody has the time and the space to learn and understand. The second driver, I think, can be a little bit like more economic and try to make them understand why, first, as also Bram was explaining, it's very important to invest in sustainability strategy to differentiate themselves. But in a few years, if also small companies will not invest in sustainability strategy, probably they will risk to be kicked out of the market. And so right now it's an opportunity. In a few years, it will become an obligation, I would say. And it's really important they see, like the situation the way it is.
Thanks, Luca. Bram, do you have any feelings on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think you're up to quite a challenge, and you realize it probably yourself as well in the daily work. Although a large share of society, is my estimation, is aware of the sometimes poor and drastic situation of our ocean health. There are a lot more question marks about how we could actually support creating to healing the seas and the oceans and everything related to it. So what I see and what I meant as well from Luca, and what I definitely endorses is the awareness creation from EBM perspective, and I believe it's EurOcean is doing that pretty well. You go where the movement is already, where the action is. I think it makes sense, of course, and we're a bit biased in terms of how we look at how innovation is stimulated. But yes, it helps to go to the places such as Atlampol that have a very strong blue economy cluster, and that not only means that they cover the whole value chain, so you have access to the researchers and as well the ability to connect the research from different disciplinaries to talk about one issue, and there might have different solutions that come together or that emerge from that. Also to sensitize students about the need to and the possibilities and the options how you can. Again, from our perspective, from the innovation ecosystem perspective, all the actors of the quadruple helix are present there. So that means you automatically as well connect with the corporates, you will connect with the investors, you will connect with the market, and as well with civil society, of course. Make your life easy, do it at the places where there is already action. It will save you a lot of energy, and I think energy is what you definitely need in this challenge.
That's the thing, you spoke about absorption capacity. We have other challenges also related with absorption capacity. So, we're just at the moment a small movement trying to have some impact. But I think this is all very positive. And, we're obviously coming from ocean literacy, but we're not just about ocean, because ocean, part of our logic is that we're actually on planet ocean, not planet Earth, almost. When you think about the hydrosphere, so there's nobody who can say that their life is not touched by the ocean. But anyway, Sarah, I think there is a question from the audience. Would you like to bring it up?
Yes. So the question is for both of you. For sure, you must have different insights or not. But the question is from Maria Lopez, and she asked, could you share your thoughts on how open it's the business sector is to integrating professionals like marine biologists or experts in marine environment or in marine resources, and what steps are being taken to support and include ocean professionals in companies?
I can go first if you want. I will be very short, I think. Well, in my case, what the business can do to include this professional, in my case, it's easy to reply. It's to open a startup that work in that sector. So we can try to include this type of professional, also not just maybe as a researcher, but also in the business sector, which to me, I think it's crucial. As an environmental economist, I don't know if the question was also to ask for some kind of advice, but I will just give one. For example, when I was studying at university, I received a very strong theoretical background. And when I finished it, I was, I don't know, really well prepared on a lot of topics, but really far from the business. So it took me 1 year at least to understand how I could integrate my knowledge, my theoretical knowledge with the state of art in the economic sector. So if I can give you maybe an advice, would be to try to maybe, I don't know, take some online courses or participate to conferences or to event like today, for example, and try to understand how you can combine your knowledge with what is happening, and also be creative in the sense that, especially in this historical period, we actually need new type of jobs to change the economic system. So I think we can try to be a little bit brave and creative and try to not just run behind what the job market is offering us, but try to a little bit influence it ourselves.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better than Luca said. Of course, I fully endorse it. Question would be, Maria, and I think the question for you would be if there's a very specific issue that you would like to pursue within the field that you're studying. There must be something, some itch to scratch that you think really just grabs me and takes a hold on me. I would like to explore this further. I'm sure that that's a good starting point to perhaps start your own company, and then look if you can find a solution that can spread through the market and spread its impact through the market. If so, yes, you're up for quite a journey, quite a ride. Very rewarding, very learningful one. My other 2 cents, I would say, is there no need to create your own company. I do believe there are many companies in the blue economy sector. It's actually quite a booming industry. If you look at investment going through those companies, I think it grew by 10 times over the last 5 to 8 years. Roughly 2.3 billion worth now. And so there are companies working in the blue economy, and they definitely, I have a few top of mind that I think they could use a very good marine biologist to think about how to better their solutions. It could be anything, and again, there depends on what your itch is. So it can be to improve coastal lines and marine life at coastlines, to creating artificial reefs, to looking at other solutions from biofuels. I have no idea. It's a very broad title that you're working in. So, but go specific and maybe look for companies that are working on that topic already and see if you can support them if they need you there.
Well, there is another question from Noreen Burke, and she said, I'm part of a national ocean literacy network, and we will struggle to find sustainable funding sources. Maybe this is more for Luca. When we apply for innovative funding calls, we are told we do not have enough of a track record to show our impact, but we need funding to create a track record of actions. So because so much of our work is around communities and societies are to show impact, could you recommend any sources we could look for funding or business networks we will benefit from joining?
This question, I'm really happy to reply, because I was exactly in the same situation 1 year ago. Last summer, that was me. So I know the way you feel. Now, I know it's not easy. honestly, for us, it took us at least probably 4 or 5 months to understand the best way to enter into the market. And I think if I can give you an advice, my advice would be try to differentiate in the sense that if you are a for-profit company, it's really important you find a way to get your first customer. I mean, even though you don't have a perfect final service or product already ready, you can start maybe offering something similar to what you want to achieve in, I don't know, 3-4 months. And so on, you will see, I don't know, you will receive some feedback, you will have the opportunity to change some things, and then you will be able probably to offer a better product fit market service, and then to acquire more clients. In terms of funding and opportunities, I think if you are receiving all of the time this answer, probably you're not searching to the right fund. So I would suggest you to maybe search to, I don't know, or some acceleration program that are more for early stage startup or organization, or to smaller grant if you are, for example, speaking about European grant, but also a national one. I mean, these three things together were the way that us as a Sea the Change managed to collect quite some, let's say, first that capital that then helped us to bootstrap and scale up a little bit faster, at least 1 year ago.
Bram, did you want to add anything? No? Okay, so we're almost at the end. We might have time for one more question if someone has a burning question. There, we have one more.
It's not a question, it's
okay, it's a thank you.
someone that is thank.
Okay, so I'll squeeze one more in before we go, because I think this is a nice one to end on, and it follows up a bit from the last question. So who do you think are the stakeholders who are most relevant in form of positive impacts? Because these are ones, this is where we grow, right? It's a snowballing effect. Who do you think are the most important stakeholders to communicate success stories to?
Do you mean like the most relevant stakeholders to communicate positive impact, or the one that should be included, let's say, in the generation of positive impact?
It can be both, right? I suppose one will affect the other.
Okay, I know it's like in our sector, I would say 2024, the word of the year could be maybe local communities, which is 2 words, not one, in the sense that now everybody's speaking about it. But actually, from my personal experience, I think that is like the most relevant stakeholder, because on one side you can actually, I don't know, if you can provide positive impact in the community where the company, for example, is working, that would help and support, I don't know, the creation of a new bond, of a new connection between the company itself, their employees, and I don't know, the local community. And on the other hand, from, for example, the local community perspective, so we can speak about schools, fishermen in our case, they may feel a little bit more included also in this ecological transition. And I think this kind of empathy, it's really needed both for, I don't know, social, as a social value. It's something it's getting a little bit lost, and we actually need something to get it back. And also in terms of like economic terms, and in terms of, for example, communication impact to actually reach a lot of people on the social media, I think that should be the right way.
Yeah, I agree with Luca. Go local. I would add go where the problems felt the deepest and the hardest. Mostly from my perspective, if you ultimate impact would be to have an entrepreneurial solution coming forth from it, then go to the area where the pain is most felt. We often see that founders come actually from areas where the issue is felt, and they come up with important solutions. How to reach those people? My idea is go to the universities, and more specifically to the more the incubators linked to the universities. They often are able to connect both technology and with research with the market. So there you have more impact for your bucks in your effort.
Okay, so thank you very much. I also see a comment there from Charu saying, why not approach the youth? It's a bit what you're talking about, Bram. Just to say that EurOcean is part of the EurOcean coalition, and we have a lot of activities really aimed at the youth. So please do check out those links that Sarah shared in the chat if you want to know more about what we're doing with youth. The youth, we've done a lot there already. Our new challenge now is to approach the business sector and to try and find ways where we can support business and work together and find some new tools and some new methods that can really help businesses to think about sustainability, and we can have some mutual impact there. So thank you all for your engaging questions, and to our speakers for their informative answers. And this brings us to the end of today's webinar, just 1 minute over time. We hope that you found it very valuable and inspiring. And please stay tuned to our upcoming webinar series on CESR practices. Our next webinar will be at the end of September. So stay tuned to the regular channels, to X and so other social media, LinkedIn. We'll be advertising that next webinar in early September. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you very much to our speakers, and have a very lovely day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Great day.